everybody, and welcome to another video of doing my sketch of the week. This week we're going to be doing the late Bob Newhart, who just recently passed away, and he was a major influence on so many comedians. The outpouring of testimonials and love for him and his work have been an obvious testament to what he meant to a lot of people, a lot of comics. He was a huge favorite of my parents, and we used to watch the Bob Newhart show all the time, even when I was a kid. So pretty familiar with him. And this is a great example. Let's just take a look quick at his head shape. He's obviously the widest part of his face or his head is way up in his forehead, right? So he's going to have a pretty big kind of light bulb shaped head. And his features are fairly close together in the middle. He's got a really small mouth, little tiny mouth. And this is a great example, I think, of how much expression really makes a difference in how you doing a great caricature of somebody. With Bob, he has, you see a lot of the pictures, of him that when I looked on the internet for some reference, there's a lot of him smiling, and he had a really big kind of toothy grin. And later in life, his teeth were just these huge things in his face. But when you really think about him as a comedian and as a performer, one of the things about him was these expressions that he'd have, the sort of put upon kind of are you kidding me sort of expression, where he was Midwest nice sort of, and didn't really denigrate people, but he was just always had this put upon look on his face, and that particular expression is really kind of iconic with him. And yeah, I could have drawn him with the big smile on his face, like so many of these pictures that I did find showed. But to me, that just really isn't him. If you really want to do a good caricature of somebody and capture their presence that I constantly talking about, you really have to pick expressions that are very iconic for them and that really describe them as people and as performers. What kind of expression really speaks to you about Bob Newhart as you've seen him for so many decades on TV. So to draw a big, smiley version of Bob, I just didn't really feel like was going to be the way to go. And I wanted to do something that was more of the puppy dog kind of quizzical almost expression that you more associate with him as a comic. So I think I'm going to do kind of I like this TV cover, box cover here is a DVD thing, I think, but where he's sitting down, but I wanted him on the phone as well, because his telephone routines where he does it's one of the things he's most famous for with his stand-up is he does these routines where he's talking and having a phone conversation with another party, and you only hear his side of the conversation, and it's hilarious the way he does it. And there's some controversy, as to whether he came up with it, but I mean, I think that's something people have been doing since there have been telephones, comedians. But he did it better than anybody, in my opinion. And so I wanted to draw him talking on the phone. I just think that's kind of a funny sort of a look. We're going to just do the curly Q telephone thing. I'll flesh that out later. But I want him sitting in a chair, kind of half taking his, he played a psychiatrist in the Bob Newhart show. And, oops, that's kind of sloppy. But so I'm gonna kind of have him sitting in a chair, his legs crossed, but talking on the phone. So he'll hold his little notepad here. Put him in his notepad. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on my sketch here. I want this to be real quick and simple, and just try to get the basics. Basic composition, my under caricature study, you know, how much of his you know, the details and stuff like that. I want to leave that for the sketch part. So I'll maybe just add a little, flesh it out a little bit here before we move over. But yeah, this little tiny mouth of his is kind of a rosebud sort of a mouth, kind of puckers up in the corners. He's got very droopy, kind of sad puppy dog eyes, and really dark, not dark circles, but like a dark kind of underlid that is sort of unusual. But it's all part of that expression of his, you know, where he's got that kind of sad, almost sad sort of look on his face. It's not really sad, he's just kind of unbelieving in a way, or just mildly put upon. Sort of hard to explain, but well, I think we're in pretty good shape here as far as, you know, really the details are the basics of what we want. He's got kind of his neck is sort of sticking out here. He's got a little bit of a double chin, just a hint of it. His head shape is really important, you know, his hairline. But these real diagonals with his eyes, where they go up, his eyebrows go up in the middle. He's got these sort of heavy lids. One of the lids is more obscured than the other. Small, kind of sharp nose, especially sharp. And he's kind of got kind of bags under his eyes. He's got these really high sort of cheekbone things that work out here. So these are all things I'm going to want to make sure I get in the final. So I think we're in good shape here. Go ahead and move over to the drawing board and finish this one up. All right, we're over here on my drawing board. I have transferred the drawing over via light table like I usually do. Just did a quick sketch, kind of refined a few lines, and I'm rolling my kneadable eraser here, knocking down the drawing so that I've got a nice light version. I want to do a lot of drawing with the pencil here, not just tracing my lines. So this is sort of halfway, like I've been saying with my other videos, between inking and doing almost a brand new sketch. So that all done. I got my reference over here. All right, so let's see, I'm gonna get a little, let's see what we can do here. So one of the big things about Bob Newhart too is he's got a pretty pronounced brow, like it's pretty dark, real shadowy, you know, underneath here, and his eyebrows, you know, really go up on the sides, and he's got these hard diagonals here from the outside going upward. These very sad kind of puppy dog eyes. A lot of the pupil and iris above the top part is obscured by the upper lids and the overhang of the brow, really. And this is all a lot of darkness in here. And then very round underneath. Get kind of these round hush puppy eyes with a really dark ring kind of underneath in here, and a lot of quite pronounced, actually, kind of bags under his eyes. Very sharp nose, like I mentioned before. Really a lot of sharp angles to his nose. Yeah, I don't like that. Not a very big nose. It's actually kind of small, but it's, and all of his features are sort of squashed together. He's just got so much forehead and upper part of the head up here. And that makes his mouth look even smaller because he's got this little small mouth. Very narrow. It's barely open when he talks. He's just like very, very subtle. Little tiny lip. But his eyes are key. And he, he's got a little bit of a wall-eyed kind of look. Like one of his eyes just look like they're looking slightly outward. Especially the one on our right, his left eye. So particularly in the photo references that I'm looking at, and also just when you watch him on video and stuff, he's got so much darkness underneath his brows that it's tough to tell where the eyebrows start and where the shadow starts. Fairly strong brow. It's got real puckery corners of the mouth too. Right here, they kind of sag down, and he's got just a little bit of a kind of a curving underneath right there, and this little darkness right here. It's got a pretty small chin. It's got a bit of a double chin, actually. And that chin comes up. A bit on the sides. Put this eraser down. So I think we're doing okay with his expression. We got those eyes, those sad sort of hush puppy dog eyes. Oh yes, they lived in the sideburn era. He was big in the sideburn era. Lots of sideburns, those adults in that time. I do some swapping around or moving around here a little bit. I had mentioned in an earlier video that it's difficult for me to do these because when I draw, I usually move things around a lot. I rotate my paper and all that kind of thing. And when I'm trying to film it, I don't want to do that because I don't want I'm not really watching the camera. I don't have anybody watching the camera, so all of a sudden I'll realize, oh crap, I've been drawing off off frame for like the last 5 minutes. So I try to keep it more static, but I'm gonna try to do a little bit more moving around because it's more natural for me when I draw to do that. I don't like drawing where my paper's static and I'm trying to move my body around it. That's another way to do it, but that's difficult to do when you're filming too. So you've got to just sort of try to move your hand or get your hand in awkward positions to keep the drawing centered on the camera. And it kind of drives you crazy. He's kind of got, I don't say puffy features, but he's got very pillowy sort of features. His cheeks are kind of chubby. They're not chubby, I guess, per se, but they've got some, they've got a little bit of kind of softness to him, I guess. He's not exactly a hard chiseled face, that's for sure. He's soft and he's got a lot of kind of curves and hanging flesh, that type of thing. His forehead gets real wrinkled. I remember listening to his comedy albums when I was a kid. In fact, there were two comedians whose comedy albums were really, I used to listen to them with my buddy who lived in the same apartment complex we lived in Madison, Wisconsin. And we listened to Bill Cosby and Bob Newhart. They were just really, really funny stuff. I love this hand, by the way, that his hand holding the phone is it's a great hand position to draw. Drawing hands is, I forgot to put his wedding ring on him. Drawing hands is something a lot of people struggle with. And I get it, hands are very expressive, and for sure there's something that we spend so much time looking at. Like we look at our own hands basically all day, every day. I mean, whenever you're doing anything, you're looking at your hands. And so if a hand is awkwardly drawn, it's very easy for us to pick up on it. We might not even really realize, I can't figure out why this looks so unnatural, but there's something wrong with this hand, But one of the tricks to it, in my opinion, is to you kind of get a sense of how hands hold things, and then you sort of have a little repertoire of ways that you draw hands holding things, like holding a glass, holding a piece of paper, holding a book, that sort of thing. And you have this little library of it kind of in your mind, that you're able to draw hands in these positions. And one of the things I did early on is I took a camera and I took photographs of my hands holding things and doing things that I knew were the type of positions that I'd really want to draw a lot, and this is just exactly like how I would hold a telephone. So so this is pretty much exactly the way. If I was to, if somebody said, "Hey, draw somebody holding a telephone," I would draw my hand like this, with one of the fingers kind of up a little bit, the other one's wrapped around the phone. You don't really see the thumb because it's back there. It's kind of probably about right here. And it's just a really great. Now I moved it a little bit, like his farther away, because I drew his body so big, or his body so small compared to his head. I had to tuck his arm in a lot closer to his body than it is in the photo. His elbow's way out here, his shoulder's way out here. If I would have done that, I would have had to give him a much bigger upper body, and which I didn't want to do. So I had to cheat it a little bit, but the way that the fingers are wrapped around that, I'm going to sharpen my pencil. The way the fingers are wrapped around that phone is a great shot, in my opinion. So I think I talked about hands in another video that I was doing, but it's one of the things I get asked about a lot, is drawing hands. And of course everybody knows or remembers Mort Drucker being one of the masters at drawing hands. But what Mort would have told you is, if you would have asked him, "How did you learn to draw such great hands?" His answer to that was, "I was terrible at drawing hands." He would say it was one of the things I hated to do. I wasn't. It was one of the things that was a weakness in my work. I never liked drawing hands. I thought hands were very difficult to draw, and I struggled with them. And he said, so one day I just decided that I was going to make it a strength. And so he started drawing his hands, and drawing hands and drawing hands and drawing hands, until it became one of his signature parts of his work. Now people point to him as being one of the masters of drawing cartoon hands. And he would say that about anything that you struggle with in your work. I saw a meme the other day that was, or was a cartoon, not a meme, that it was I can't remember who did it. It was really funny. It was like a scene in hell, and the devil or a demon, it was an art studio in hell, and this artist was in hell, and the devil was pointing to a graphic or a chalkboard that was said, "Today we're going to draw," and it listed all the things that artists constantly complain about having to draw, like feet, hands, bicycles, cars, that sort of thing, which is funny because everybody's got sort of their little bugaboo. They hate drawing bicycles, or they hate drawing, cars or something like that. But whenever I think about that, I always think about that advice that Mort would give, and say you shouldn't struggle drawing anything if you don't want to. You just make it into something that you're good at, and it's just all about practice and learning it and figuring out what it's all about. And that's what he did with hands, and it became something that he was known for. So, great piece of advice from one of the best illustrators ever. We'll do a little cross-hatching up here before we get going on the body. For anybody watching this video that's 20 years old or younger, this is a telephone. This is what people used to talk to each other on. Big plastic device. It's funny that I think people, I wonder if the motion of, you know, holding this to your head when you're symbolizing talking to somebody on the phone is something that people of the younger generations that have grown up on smartphones are going to not understand. It's like, wait a minute, there was a piece that went by your mouth and then another part that went by your ear, and how did that work exactly? Took a lot of liberties with the perspective and the just his body in general. You know, it's like his when you do these caricatures, it's always tough for me to decide how big do I want to make the head, you know, in comparison with the body, and how important is the body and aspects of it compared to, you know, obviously the face is sort of the more important element in any caricature in general, although that isn't precisely true, because with some people their body posture and everything is as or more important than anything in capturing their presence, right? But I'll do, like, you know, a larger head, not a lollipop sort of caricature where you've got the giant head with the little tiny body underneath it, but a much larger head than humanly possible. But some caricatures, you know, you can't do that because the body is too important or plays too much of a role in what you're trying to do. I did a caricature of David Byrne not that long ago as one of my sketches of the week, and he was in his big suit, right? And I when I was drawing it, I did his head, and then I thought, well, okay, I'm going to draw the body in the big suit. But with his head big, it really didn't work, because the big suit is got it, you know, his whole body is big, everything is out of proportion, his head is tiny. And so I should have done that with his caricature, but I chickened out. Just decided to do the big head so I could draw the likeness and get his expression and, you know, his facial features and everything. And I figured people would know about the big suit. I also did it where I really made his shoulders super wide, so his head was big, but his shoulders and the whole boxy nature of that outfit that he wore on that tour was in place, and that helped, but it still was a mistake on my part. I should have done the little tiny head and the much bigger body, but oh well. This is just kind of a fun, you know, body position for him, sitting in the chair. Holding the notebook, you know. I'm just going to have the phone cord go off the side of the page, I think. Easy chair, or not big, but overstuffed. It's fun watching how shoes have changed so much over the years, and how you can identify shoes by their era, you know. At this time, like in the 70s, if you see men with dress shoes on, they have very pointy toes. And fashion, you know, these days, at least everyday shoes, the pointy toe thing is out, except for certain, you know, really dress shoes or kind of fashion statement type shoes. But men wear shoes that have more of a rounded toe to them now, and it's not quite as triangular in the front part of their pad, like this triangular sort of shape. I could have exaggerated it more with a real point to it. But you know, tennis shoes and things like that are so different now than they used to be. They're bulkier in certain places, and if you look at those like old ads in Mad Magazine and DC Comics that Jack Davis did with Julius, Dr. J, and Rick Barry, and two NBA players, and the tennis shoes that they're wearing are just these little slivers of things compared to these giant behemoths that modern basketball players and athletes wear. And it's kind of a different thing. I wonder, you know, you look at those old drawings and you kind of see how they drew feet, and you're wondering, gee, I wonder what they would think if they were drawing these kinds of shoes today. They're very different. All right, let's see here. See, rotating the paper. When I do one of these inking, I'm going to be doing a lot of this sort of thing, and that's because when you draw, especially when you're inking and doing something that requires, you know, like spontaneous line work and just a real rhythm to what you're doing, you can't. It's easier to move away from your body, I think, in this direction upward, as opposed to coming down in towards your body with your hand. So I do that when I draw with pencil too, because in a way I'm inking with this pencil. It's a lot of sort of my live caricature background in play here, that I spent time using a pencil to do lines that were very bold and spontaneous, and one stroke and you're done sort of thing, instead of building up texture or building up density in lines like I just did there. I would just do one line, and that's what you do when you ink. And it's, you know, if you're working in an angle or at a in a movement that is awkward for your body, then it's tough to get those lines right. Okay. Well, you know, I think we've got things pretty much in hand here. I'm gonna maybe do a little bit more touching up, and we'll call it a day. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.